All right, folks, this will be the trolling portion of fishing for spring Chinook on the Columbia River. Make sure you watch all the parts so that you're well informed on how to be successful.
If you've got a boat from 14 feet to 30 feet, you can troll herring out of it. You don't have to worry about the anchor systems and so on and so forth. So this is kind of where my passion is with trolling herring. So in this segment, we're going to go over covering water and finding fish as opposed to anchoring and waiting for fish. How to cut herring, how to rig your rod, how to color, cure, and dye your bait, and how to hook up your herring. Basic necessities. Bait cooler. This is in my boat constantly. It's always full of ice. Okay. Again, like I said in the last segment, I want to make sure my bait's nice and cold. Non-chlorinated water. Whenever we're brining herring, I want non-chlorinated water. If you got chlorine in your tap water, don't use it. Because like I mentioned, those fish can smell parts per million. It's worth the $1.50 to go buy a gallon jug of distilled water. Use non-chlorinated water, okay? Every little bit helps. Not saying you can't catch a fish on it, but again, I want to be that guy that comes in with 5 or 6 and not 1. So I try and take every little advantage I can, and that's using non-chlorinated water. Coloring and scent. So on the market today, there's dozens of different scents, colors, dyes. I'll go over with you my personal preference. Not saying it's the only way to do it, but it's proven that it works to me. So different dyes, salts, different brines. Okay, cutting and rigging your herring. You'll see on this picture here on the far right, that's a bait cutting guide. There's quite a few different styles of them on the market today. This is a metal one. And all this is doing is it's kind of a foolproof method of cutting your herring with the right beveled angle. Okay, so it's not just an angle, it's a beveled angle. So a bait cutting guide. And again, a good sharp knife. We don't want to mush our herring, so I want a good sharp knife, okay? Good bait. When I'm going through the cooler or through the freezer, I want to pick out the best bait that's in there. And that is bait that's not missing a lot of scales. It's certainly not the fattest herring in there. When they package herring, they starve them for a period of time. And then they shock them, and that kills them instantly, so there's not a bunch of scale loss. If you get fat, round, plump herring, typically they're mushy, okay? Because they have not been starved well. They got a belly full of guts, their stomach's all stretched out, and they're mushy. I want a nice, thin, flat, not missing any scales. And another good way to look at herring too, to see if they've been processed correctly, is look at the eyes on them. If they're black in the middle and a white ring on the outside, they're in good shape. If their eyes are bloodshot, they probably thrashed around for a while. They've been frozen, thawed out, and refrozen again if they're bloodshot. So I want as good a herring as I can get my hands on. We look at herring in a couple different ways, and we distinguish them in package coloring. So this would be considered a green label size herring. It's got a green label on it. The package on the bottom is a red label. That's the next size smaller, okay? Blue would be bigger. For springer fishing, even for fall Chinook fishing, I use green label. Very rare, occasionally I'll use red, but it seems like quality of herring, green is the most popular, so it circles through the freezer a little bit faster. Oftentimes you get better looking green label than anything else. It's the most popular selling size, so it circles through the freezers quicker at tackle shops, what I've found. So green label is, in my opinion, the perfect size for springers, and it's all I use for fall Chinook fishing down at Astoria as well. Okay? Very important to have good bait.
Do you ever use fresh bait?
Fresh bait works well. It's kind of a little tough to get. You know, I know Narrows has some fresh bait, and fresh herring is good if you're fishing it that day or the next day. But I don't like to brine fresh herring because, again, it hasn't been starved like this has. I'm fine with frozen herring. As long as it's taken care of well, I'm fine with frozen herring. So I'm going to mix it up a little bit. We're going to go, let's talk rods and reels again first, and then we'll go into the important part, and that is how to brine our herring and how to cut our herring. I am using the exact same rods, okay? I don't have 14 or 15 different rods to have one set up for herring and one set up for quick fish, so I use the exact same rods for everything, and they work perfect for everything. These are, again, the same G. Loomis rod, and they're called herring rods. They're G. Loomis's herring series of rods, or they're mooching rods. Again, they're 10.5 foot long, 10 to 40 pound, same rod, same reel, same line, okay? Identical, okay? When we start talking about the rest of it, we start out identical to what we were using with our quick fish. You can see if I switch gears and go from anchor fishing to trolling, I've got the key stuff already on there, okay? I just have to add from the swivel down, okay, to change out. So again, I got my droppers. You're gonna see a big difference here. This is a foot long, okay? It's not 4 feet long. When I'm trolling herring, the herring doesn't dive on its own. I want this thing darn near on the bottom. I want it in the bottom 2 feet of the water column, okay? And I am not afraid for this lead to be bouncing bottom periodically. I don't want it dredging, but I don't mind it tapping, okay? So 1 foot dropper, same slider, same golf tee, same bead, same everything, okay? Identical from here out except for the dropper length. From my swivel, I call this my shock leader, okay? These flashers are about 10 or 11 bucks a piece, okay? I run 30 or 40 pound heavier leader as a little bit of a shock leader to my flasher. These are made by Hotspot. They're called an agitator flasher. I like these. For one, they have a Sampo ball bearing swivel on both sides, so they spin a lot better, okay? If they don't spin, you tend to get line twists, okay? Ball bearing swivels make a huge difference. They are far more expensive than a regular barrel swivel, but they're worth their weight in gold. It spins a lot better. These also have an additional flat spot on them, okay? So not only are they notched here, but they're notched here, okay? One more surface area for the water to hit. It allows these to rotate at a slower troll. When we are springer fishing, I'm going as slow as my little 8-horse Yamaha will take me. I don't want to go sailing through there because I'm trolling downriver. I'm always trolling downriver. I never troll upriver because chances are I'm going to be losing ground, okay? I don't want to be sitting in one spot. If I'm trolling downriver, I'm moving with the current and I'm covering more water, okay? So I got my kicker motor barely in gear. I want this thing spinning at a slow troll. So that's why I use these flashers with Sampo ball bearings on them with that additional bend that allows them to rotate at a slow troll. So again, shock leader or bumper, flasher, and that's only about 2 feet long, okay? And this will all come down to why I use long rods again, because this is a lot of crud hanging off the end of your rod. And if you're running a short rod, it's difficult to net fish. So I go to another 2 foot section or 1.5 foot section. This is a long leader, it's 6 feet long. I run a ball bearing swivel in the middle of my leader, okay? This is spinning, my herring is spinning, okay? It's a good way to get line twists if you don't run a Sampo or some kind of barrel swivel or ball bearing swivel. I much prefer ball bearings, okay? So 2 feet a leader or so to my Sampo, 4 feet a leader to my herring. This eliminates me reeling it up and it's a tangled mess, okay? You got a lot of stuff that's going down in the water right now. Let it down nice and slow. I'm talking creep it down. If you let it down really fast, you will come back with a ball of mess and you'll be in timeout for half an hour, okay? Let it down slowly, run a Sampo in the middle. Not only does this eliminate line twists, you want this herring to spin like a top. I want this thing spinning nice and tight. If I put a Sampo on here, it spins as free as anything, and it's gonna allow my herring to spin even freer, okay? So 30 or 40 pound, then I'm going, I like 20 pound. You guys are gonna say it's a little light, and yes, it is a little bit light, but I would rather hook fish, more fish, than spook them away. If I lose one periodically, I'm okay with that as long as I'm hooking them. So I run, on my quick fish leaders, I don't care. It's an aggression bite. I use Maxima Ultra Green, I use Iserline, something strong, durable, tough, and I don't care if it's green in color. When I'm trolling herring, it's more of a finesse fishery. I swear by Seaguar fluorocarbon. It's the most expensive monofilament you can buy. Just a little spool of it's 17 or 18 bucks, but it's good. It's fluorocarbon, fish cannot see it. I run 20 pound, okay? 25 is okay. I have no problem fishing 25. But Seaguar fluorocarbon for leader material when you're fishing herring is awesome stuff. It's virtually invisible. It's very nice to tie with, okay? It's not very stiff, so your herring spins nice and free. It's worth it, okay? So again, total length of leader behind the flasher is about 6 feet. I'm running a double hook setup. With green label herring, I run 3/0 hooks, 3/0 or 4/0 hooks, okay? Depending on the hook brand. These are Gamakatsus, so I run 3/0s, okay? They're a little bit heavier, a little bit beefier hook. If I run those mustads that I know Kent's tying with, I would go up one size. I would go to 4/0s because they're super fine wire, they're extremely lightweight, and allows your herring to spin with going the next size up in hook, okay? So good rule of thumb, green label, 3/0s or 4/0s, okay? And again, these are red hooks. I like red hooks. I like black hooks as well, okay? If I have a preference, if I have to pick one off the shelf, I like to buy red hooks. I think it gives it that bleeding bait look, okay? It looks like it's a wounded herring that's got a little blood coming off of it. So I use red Gamakatsu. These are 3/0 hooks. Any questions on the setup so far? Questions back there?
Solid tie or slip tie?
Solid ties. When I hook a fish, I don't want anything slipping, okay? I want it just, it's there, okay? So I use solid ties, and I tie them according to the size of herring that I use. And it'll be easier for me to show that to you once I cut a herring and rig one. You got a question, bud?
It's about 4 fingers.
Depends on the bait size. Strictly on bait size. If I'm using green label, I eyeball it. In fact, the first hook, the first one that I tie, I've got a 2x4 at my house in my garage that's got a nail hammered into it in 2 different sizes. So the first hook goes on, I know where it goes, I tie it. I slide it up to the next nail, boom, that's my length. I know that that's what I need for green label herring, okay? I go to the next level and I wrap them on pipe insulation. I've got some look like paper towel dispensers in my boat that all my leader rolls go onto. If I break off or if I land a fish on 20-pound leader, I am changing the leader almost every time. I'll keep the hooks because they're still fine, but it's not worth it to me to have a little nick in my line and miss the next fish. So I've got these in my boat, grab one off like a paper towel, tie it on, done deal. So I've got these rigged up in my boat. Three Rivers sells these pre-tied with great hooks and great leader material. Question, bud?
Is it true that fish can't see red underwater?
I disagree with that because a lot of the lures we use are red. We're not fishing 100 feet down, and maybe that's the case at 100 feet down, but we're fishing oftentimes 14 to 25 feet. I think they can see red because a lot of the plugs we use are red, spinners we use are red colored, flashers we use are red in color. Red's a good color for springers. Red and chartreuse and green, that's my colors. Okay, any other questions so far on the rigging? Yes?
The size of the hooks at the front and the back?
I'm sorry?
The size of the hooks at the front and the back for herring.
You know, there's 2 chains of thought there. Some people run 2 different, like a 3/0, 4/0 leader. I just run the same exact hooks, okay? So if I'm running 3/0 hooks, I'm running 3/0 hooks on both of them. If I'm running 4/0, I'm running 4/0 on both of them. It's personal preference. That's what I do. It's easier for me to buy one big 100-pack of hooks and sit there and bang out a bunch of leaders than it is to change hook sizes. So if I'm using 3/0s, I'm using 3/0s on both of them. But again, that's personal preference, okay? So pretty similar concept. The top end of it is to what we were anchor fishing with. The change comes when we add the flashers, okay? So again, overall length here, I'm probably talking 8 feet. It's kind of tough to net a fish if you're running a short rod. A lot of times we get up to the boat and I just say, hey, back up, guys. I've got an 8 to 10 foot handle on my net and I'm reaching. It's tough, but that's the setup, yep. And when you see guys trolling, 95% of them are running this exact same setup, okay? Any questions? Yes?
Are you using a larger flasher or?
There's 2 different sizes. They make a medium and they make an original. This is the larger size. I use some of both, okay? And a lot of that depends on water clarity. If I'm fishing clearer water, I'll go down a size. And sometimes I don't even run a flasher at all. If I've got 2 rods up on the bow with flashers on them, I'm not afraid to run one without a flasher on it. But I mix it up a little bit. If I've got 5 flashers on, I might have 2 or 3 mediums and 2 larges. I don't think it makes a bunch of difference.
Okay guys, that's the end of part 1. I hope you're finding this information helpful. Make sure you move on to part 2. Three Rivers Marine is Western Washington's destination for anglers. Three Rivers Marine is run by fishermen for fishermen. Visit their website at threeriversmarine.com.